Who believes in fairies as they did in days gone by? Do you believe in fairies who can sing and dance and play and happily abide in flower and tree? Well, I do, for I'm one, you see. Fairies, fairies, pretty little fairies, 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 pretty.
Skyward, where the trailing starlight bends, just left of where by night the sunshine hides. Or is it that bit where the rainbow ends? Well, somewhere like that the Tooth Fairy resides, in a pretty woodland cottage placed on high, with Tooth collecting all-round view because it's rather like a bird's nest box. And why? Well, I expect at one time probably it was. So now our fairy, though 'tis Christmas Eve, is sitting, waiting, watching, and the reason that she's on duty still, would you believe? Milk teeth are no respecters of the season. In some small mouth, some loose baby tooth will know, for close behind it there will be a bump. That's when the waiting new tooth says, "Off you go! It's time! Just shout Geronimo and jump!" For Alexia there was cause for some surprise. In her hand a small tooth, smooth and pearly, and gap in gums mirrored before her eyes. The first surprise of Christmas had come early. The Tooth Fairy is wanted, something tells the petals on the wind of morning glory, which give alert the sound of tinkle bells. No, not Tinkerbell, that's quite another story. I should explain, she operates on several fronts. When she sets off her duties to perform, she goes to separate places all at once, to us quite strange, for her it's just the norm. No one could get all round the places she goes. To each child she must give time and tender care. She achieves all this with lots of alter egos, which means that half the time she's not all there.
Down here I'm tiny, so it's just as well to have a ladder that can help me see. And when my wand has worked its wondrous spell, the ladder's me.
But now, looking through drawn curtains with magic eyes, she sees that Alexia is still wide awake. And that should really come as no surprise. After all, it's Christmas Eve, for goodness sake. So Peggy, for that's what she's called, what else, is wondering if the Sandman's still on hand. In a twinkling, she calls him for his help by sprinkling his sleep-inducing sand. The Sandman duly appears with bag of sand. Not seaside sand, but dreamflower seed and bits of twinkly dust from the Milky Way. Alexia's eyes close as the little cloud falls from his hand, and soon sleep's curtains gently close her day. The Tooth Fairy, when sure that Alexia's sleep was sound, carefully felt under the pillow 'neath her head, replacing the little tooth with a gold and silver coin, £2. "It used to be sixpence once," she said. The Sandman was sweeping up. 'Twas his advice, one must be neat and tidy with these things. The house won't want a bunch of drowsy mice. He was about to flick the dust off Peggy's wings when they became aware a fall of soot caused some commotion in the fireplace, followed after some kerfuffle by a foot, and then a rotund body, then a face. Yes, they added up to Santa, looking drawn. "Ah, Tooth Fairy," he said, "perhaps you can help me, miss. I've got toothache. I'm supposed to get all this done by dawn. I really don't feel up to it like this. I only gather milk teeth when they fall. Don't do extractions. It'll be worse by wind chill in a reindeer flight. You can hardly concentrate with such distractions. Oh, what a rotten thing to get tonight. I'll see what my grandma says. Oh, but there is a snag. I don't have one." Now she stops and blinks. "I've just remembered there is a helpline for tooth fairies. I'll see what someone else's grandma thinks." "Duty Grandma speaking," said a kind maternal voice. Peggy told her Santa's plight and how pathetic things were, because they had no knowledge, tools or choice, though they could use Sandman's sand as anaesthetic. "Well, my dear, I can recall from way back in my youth when folk were so unhealthy and so poor. They'd tie string, one end to the doorknob, the other to the tooth, tell the patient to hold tight, then slam the door. A nosebleed, cut lip and a black eye in bloom, and a large bruise in a very painful place. Perhaps he should have been with the door inside the room. As it was, alas, we slammed it in his face." Then Santa, though it was painful, forced a smile, and in that row of smiling teeth a gap. "Don't worry, friends, your efforts were worthwhile." And a large and blood-stained tooth lay in his lap. Santa Claus was cheery, though he looked all patched and rough, but his newfound friends had rallied to the call. He set off, sledge still loaded, full of toys and games and stuff. "This night will be successful after all." It's that perfect night that Christmas time will bring, glinting snow and shapes across the moon. Carolers tell us, "Hark, the herald angels sing." Try to ignore those singing out of tune. On Christmas Day, Santa had a well-earned lie-in. On Boxing Day, he invited his new friends round to say a thank you for how helpful they had been. Indeed, saved the whole mission, or at least avoided serious delay. These three, who would not normally have met, now had a chance of learning the unique aspects of their respective jobs and get to know each other. Santa's first to speak. "The magic space-time vortex takes me around the speed of light, so fast that I sometimes get back before I started. But with toothache, I'd have not got off that night, leaving all those little children broken-hearted. You've heard of Christmas time. It's on all those gifts and cards you're sent." "Yes, but that's not what we thought it meant." "One of my hazards is witches stealing sleep sand for their spells, as reporting from the sand trade paper shows. It gives a dozing off effect, like gas, without the smells, sandwiches and sandpaper. You must have heard of those." "Yes, we hear it in the papers and the chat, but we never really thought of them like that. Not all fairies are given wings to fly, you see. If you get wings, you also have a tail at the rear. Some types are meant to fly, and one of them is me. The tail's part of the aerodynamic flying gear. You'll have heard of airy fairy and fairy tales, I suppose?" "Yes, but we didn't think that it meant those." "Does the Christmas spirit mean that all have fun, and that the spirit folk who work behind the scenes might get a little spirit time themselves when work is done?" "Yes, that will be exactly what it means." 3 books among Alexia's gifts galore: Sandman's Tales, Tooth Fairy, Father Christmas is Unwell. She surely can't have seen these books before. But oddly, something sort of rang a bell.
Funny things can happen when it comes to Christmas Eve. Things you know have happened but you still can't quite believe. Little lights shut down.